All right. Welcome to the full moon slash lunar Beltane ritual for April. That's right. We're still in April. And a little bit of Taurus season magic since both options, the Beltane and the Taurus season magic, kind of were selected neck and neck for the vote. I decided to just kind of combine the two and make some magic out of that. So, our intentions today are dropping in and connecting with the moon and to connect with the magic of Taurus season through working with the tarot card of Taurus, which is the Hierophant. And of course, if you are watching this as a recording, you can use this as your Beltane ritual. Also, if you're watching this live, you can use this as your Beltane ritual, not just your lunar Beltane. So before we get started, I do want to dive into a few little things about this moment that we are in. So today is the full moon in Scorpio, and this full moon is known as the pink moon. Each month, the full moon takes on a name, and every time the moon is in Scorpio in April, we can call it the pink moon. This moon invites us to look inward, to care for ourselves, to build structures of self care that truly support us and break old habits. And most importantly, showing up for ourselves in a compassionate way while we do this work. So, since this is when the moon is in Scorpio, we can think of this work like a snake shedding its skin or composting to create new life. And of course, as we go through these slides today, we're going to be seeing the Hierophant and its different iterations as a way to really think about how the Hierophant connects to what we're talking about, to kind of look at this as an icon of a visualization, right? So when we talk about cards in relationship to astrology, I like to think of these cards being simply a way of connecting with this magic in a visual way. Because sometimes these ideas around the astrological energies can be a little abstract. We of course have certain myth and images from those myths that help connect to that idea, that concept, that iconography. And so I just feel like using tarot as a tool in this way helps us dive into that a little deeper. But kind of thinking about what is Beltane, it's the holiday that celebrates spring at its peak and the day in the coming summer. Beltane also sometimes goes by the name May Day, since this holiday is strongly associated, or well, it's the first day of May, usually, or yeah, all the time. Um, and so lunar Beltane is associated with the full moon that comes with this season, the liminal space in between the winter solstice and the summer solstice. These can kind of be seen as the two ends of the spectrum, right? The winter and the summer. And in between these two extremes, we have these beautiful times of transition. That is the fall and the spring, when there is the death and the rebirth that brings us to these intensities. So, one thing to think about with Beltane is this rebirth process, right? This blooming that is coming up within the earth. This can also be connected to Taurus. So today we're really touching base with the moon, the stars, the season, and through how Taurus is that guide. And of course, to kind of get us into that fully, the Hierophant and Taurus. Taurus is the first earth sign of the zodiac. If we think of the zodiac as a wheel, the wheel that turns, we can see that this wheel starts with the fire of Aries. And we can almost see this as the spark of life, the fire of spirit that is coming into birth. And so, Taurus being the first earth sign of the zodiac, we can think about it as the grounding space. And with this image of the Hierophant specifically, we can really think of this container, right? We can see at the threshold the sun opening through the above, and this earthy container being where we hold that fire of spring. With Aries, we are initiating spring. That is our cardinal energy of spring. And so with Taurus, we are sinking into the heaviest part of spring, its purest form. And I find that it's really beautiful that it is within Earth because it is Earth that is blooming around us. And so, with the Hierophant in the tarot, the Hierophant acts as the one to share di- divine connection with God or spirit. So, in the older iterations of the Hierophant, it's actually known as the Pope. The Pope being the messenger of God, the one who speaks directly and interprets, right? And this is, we can take it as the earthly container of God's word or of the spirit. And the invitation I often feel that is being asked of us is to see ourselves as the Hierophant. In this way, we can see ourselves as the container of magic that we seek. We are the holders of the sacred light, much as Taurus is for Aries. We do not need to seek others to give us the truth. We do not need to seek the message outside of ourselves. There is no guru, there is no visionary, there is no tarot reader or astrologer or a pastor or whatever the case may be that can actually help fulfill the work that we ourselves are here to channel. And that's a really beautiful um, invitation, I feel like, where we are able to sink deep, knowing that we really just need to give ourselves the space to be the container. And so, with this lunar Beltane, this invitation of the full moon, oh my gosh, the full moon in Scorpio that acts as the rebirthing, the recreator, the embodiment. There's just so many ways we can really engage with this. And even talking about it, I feel a little heady because there's so much expansion in this season. One thing I like to think about with the wheel of the zodiac is, and just the wheel of the year, the seasonal year, is the expansion and contraction that each season brings us. And so with spring, we can see things in a really expansive place. Even just the idea of a seed bursting from its shell and becoming the sprout feels very in alignment with this idea of self-care, of honoring ourselves, and taking up space in our own way. And by that, I mean taking up space to know that our connection is valid. We don't need to seek other people outside of it. So I want to give us some time to journal right now. Just kind of take a moment um, to think about these questions and to, of course, whoop, think about these questions in relationship to what I just shared. And of course, those being, how can you show yourself more compassion and grace right now? How did you fully honor your sacredness? And of course, what area of your life requires renewal right now? And if you are working on just one, feel free to just stick with one. You don't have to stick to all three. You can revisit others later. I'm going to be busting out a brand new sketchbook in honor of the Beltane season, the season of birth. And so I'll give us a few minutes to just focus in with this energy, and I'll circle back in a little bit. All right, taking a second to just zoom out. After doing some quick journaling, I want to circle back on the takeaways from what I um, shared earlier. And of course, if you are watching this as a recording, um, feel free to pause this and just take your time here as much as you want to. Or if you're here, take your time as much as you want to. But the main takeaway from what I shared and what I kind of want to sum up is that your sacredness is never diminished, but simply transformed by the magic you embody naturally. This is something that I think we just could all be reminded of, especially in a time where it feels like the world is asking you to give your power away. Um, Knowing that it is okay to trust yourself. And on that note, your rebirthing is constantly happening for your best self, regardless of if any other person, anyone other than you can see it. Um, Sometimes the biggest work is the work that others don't see, and that is very valid. And then, of course, that you are the container of your sacred truth, and you deserve to love yourself accordingly. So, with that said, let's just drop in to a little sacredness with mindful movement and meditation. The image in front of you is an old interpretation of the Hierophant, and we can see that this person is sitting up straight. So if you haven't done that today, just kind of finding your seat. When I say mindful movement, I mean just really moving with intention in the breath. So starting with how can we embody this idea, this container that is Taurus, that is this height intensity of spring, this container of sacredness. Um, and actually, one thing I've been meaning to mention this month on Patreon, we've been talking about jewel. Um, that I think it was jewel or gem. That was our word. That's been our word for the month. So thinking of this as like polishing ourselves. We are the jewel. We are the gem. We are the crystal of sacredness. So sitting on our thrones, nice and tall, just start with some nice slow shoulder rolls. And again, breathe with this. So bring in the breath. Let's start with inhaling the shoulders up to the ears and release with the breath. Do it a few more times. Just kind of feeling that out. Maybe free it up. Coming back to stillness and a tall back. You can also stand if that's more comfortable, whatever really calls to you. No wrong or right here, just only is. Let's bring our hands out nice and wide and just feel that expansion as if you're trying to touch a wall on either side of you. Breathing in deep here, holding our heads tall and steady. And maybe even imagining yourself as a little tree bud, a little sapling. Maybe wiggling the fingers on either side, rolling the wrists, and expanding those arms, just pushing out, gently expanding through the chest, breathing in. And exhale, bring the hands above Reaching out again, growing a little taller through the spine. And you can look up if that feels good. Breathing here, nice and deep, feeling our just spine lengthen. Next, exhale, bring the hands to heart center. Bringing back expansion and contraction. And breathe here. Maybe even closing your eyes at this point if you haven't yet. And I want to invite you to just keep your hands at your heart. Maybe give your heart a little rub. Roll out the neck. Coming back to center and stillness. Notice where your body is now. How that little bit of movement, that little stretching feels in the body and where you're landing now. Just allow yourself to feel any tension and breathing into those spaces again with just grace and compassion. Do you feel any tightness? Any areas that need more breath? Take a moment to breathe into those spaces, keeping the hand on the heart and just connecting with the breath from in through the nose and out through the mouth. Find your rhythm. Find your breath. I want to invite you to just imagine a light in your heart space, whatever color comes up for you. Imagine that colorful light, or even just white light, expanding in your chest, starting as a small seed. And with each breath, the seed in your heart grows a little bigger, a little brighter. With each breath, really just allowing that seed to grow until your whole body, even chest or body, is just filling with that light, that colorful or white light. Take your time here, just filling that space, the space that is you. That light, your spirit, and your heart, the sacred container. With your next breath, just send that light and yourself so much gratitude and goodness. And let any tension you're holding, let all of it out with a sigh. Let's take one last deepest breath you've taken all day. Inhale through the nose, holding it at the top here and releasing that light with your exhale into the world, into the collective, into the space you are in. And just be here for a moment with gratitude, with grace. Returning to a breath that feels just where you are and just feeling where you are after that. Noticing how your heart feels, how your body feels. And take your time just being here for a moment, for as long as you need to, honestly. Allow yourself to just slowly come back in. To gather yourselves, your tools for art making, and take a moment to reflect. And I want to invite you, if you feel called, on a blank paper on which you will be drawing on or making art on, to ask these what or whys. What is coming up for you in the moment? And why do you think this is? Why do you think this is coming up for you? Just write it on that same paper, wherever you feel called, or on a canvas, whatever you have. Write the answers to these little questions as briefly and just instinctually as possible. And allow that to kind of guide your creative expression today in this practice. Allow this to be the curious question that allows you to explore creatively in whatever capacity that means. I'm gonna leave these up, these little reminders to remember that everything that comes up in this creative practice is sacred. You are allowed to honor all feelings, no matter how heavy. And of course, you can always start over. You can always give yourself a fresh start. You can always begin again, just as spring reminds us. I'm going to put on some music again, a little Beltane playlist for us as we work. But of course, if this music is not jiving with you, feel free to mute this and put on whatever feels in alignment with your mood, because that is important. And yeah, I'll be circling back in a little bit. If you're sitting hunched over, make sure to stretch the back occasionally. Don't get too lost in the softs. We'll be working for a few more minutes. friends, one more song and then we're going to close out. So take some time to kind of wrap up what you're doing and find a good stopping, at least for the moment. Right. Another moment, maybe wrap up where you are. Maybe you're journaling and need a moment to finish a thought. Where I do a closeout with my fantastic life. I do want to just kind of give a quick thank you if you are watching this recording in Patreon or in YouTube land, wherever you might be. Thank you for showing up today. I hope this ritual serves you as a reminder of your magic, your value, and your sacredness in this magical time of rebirth and blooming. And of course, feel free to revisit this again during Beltane, the 1st of May Day. But yeah, see you next time. Thank you again. And with that said, let's see. Until the next one.